In my analysis, the key to understanding everything is it... Sorry, I'll do it again. Keep running.
Okay.
Just keep running.
Well, that's okay.
Untime me. In my analysis, the key to understanding is knowledge of the difference between Judaism and Zionism. Judaism, simply stated, is the religion of Jews. Not the Jews, because not all Jews are religious. Like Islam and like Christianity, Judaism has at its core a set of moral values and ethical principles. Zionism, as a form of Jewish nationalism, is a sectarian colonial enterprise which created in the Arab heartland a state for some Jews, and it created it mainly by Zionist terrorism and ethnic cleansing. And in doing so, it made a complete mockery of Judaism's moral values and ethical principles, and it's been doing that ever since. We need look no further than the recent Israeli attack on the Gaza flotilla, for example. That, in my view, like so many other Israeli acts of the most recent years, was an act of pure, naked Israeli state terrorism. Now, why is it important to understand the difference between Judaism and Zionism? Simply this: you can then understand two things. One is why it is perfectly possible to be passionately anti-Zionist, meaning anti-Zionism's colonial enterprise, without being in any way, shape or form anti-Semitic, in the sense of being anti-Jew. But there's something else you can understand, and that is why it is wrong to blame all Jews everywhere for the crimes of the hardcore Zionist few in Israel of today. Now, that is so important, but I also have to say that the truth of history has to be handled with very, very great care by both Jews and Arabs, because the truth of history, as I tell it in my book, could provoke anti-Semitism. But the way to exorcise that danger is by knowing the difference between Judaism and Zionism. Now, I also know that handling the truth is very problematical for both Jews and Arabs. The fact is that most Jews simply do not want to know the truth of history. It's too uncomfortable for them. Now, in this short time I have available, that is an assertion on my part, but it too is fully documented through the 3 volumes of my book. But for Arabs and Muslims, those who live as citizens of the Western nations, handling the truth of history is also a problem, particularly so in the post-9/11 world. Why so? Because the monster of Islamophobia is on the prowl and licking its lips. Now, as a Gentile, I understand the fears that this provokes in Arabs and other Muslims. I understand why they should say, it's too dangerous, I must keep my head down, keep my mouth shut in order to protect my job, my children, my income, anything. Now, that's understandable, but it's not the way to deal with the monster of Islamophobia. But there is a way, and it is to argue in this fashion, that the support of the country in which you live, be it America, Canada or Europe, that government support for Israel, right or wrong, is not in the interests of any of those countries. How can it be in the interests of America, for example, to have enemies of 1.4 billion Muslims, when actually most Muslims don't hate America? They even want to become friends with it. Most Muslims would, if they could, come and live in America to have a better life. Maybe that's less true after the recent problems with the economy, but it's still generally true. What most Muslims hate is what I hate. It's American-led Western double standards in foreign policy, in particular in relation to the Israeli-Palestine conflict, but also in relation generally to the whole Muslim world. So, how do you protect yourself as an Arab and a Muslim by handling the truth of history? It's very simple. Not too long ago, America's leading serving general, David H. Petraeus, said that American support for Israel, right or wrong, was not in America's own best interest and was even harming them. Now this is the argument that Arabs and Muslims who live as citizens of the Western world can deploy. They can make the argument, if they're well informed enough, to be able to say, look, fellow citizens, it's not in the best interests of our country to go on supporting Israel, right or wrong. But here again, at the risk of over-promoting it, is the real significance of my book. To argue this case, you need to be well informed, because Zionism makes its case by simple assertion. It never produces any evidence to back it up. So if you are to engage with Zionism and defeat it in argument, it's not enough to rely on simple counter-assertion. It's not enough to say Zionism is wrong. You have to be able to say, this is why Zionism is wrong. 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever. And that again is the significance of these 3 books, 3 volumes. This will give you a tool, not only to help defend your own interests, to argue in a way that can expose Zionism for the monster it is, but it will enable you to contribute positively to best protecting the real interests of the countries of which you are citizens.